which,
I looked a lot at
you have the right
Yeah.
idea, and I don't think it matters particularly, but I think B4 might be a better way to do that.
I wondered about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta go upstairs.
But they both draw, it doesn't matter,
Oh.
you don't have enough.
So rook to C.
Okay, so he just gave everybody a huge clue. He played rook C8, which
Oh, so
does,
the threat is,
Rook C5.
correct.
yeah.
If you let black go rook C5, you don't have a hope in hell of winning this position.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
we have to stop rook C5. I don't like Mike's way of doing it particularly, just because,
The E pawn gets looped, maybe?
well, it's not really clear to me why your rook F3 move might not work, right? Like, if the E pawn isn't protected,
Mhm.
it's useful, right? The rook is actually protecting the pawn.
Yeah.
If he plays this rook here,
E4.
it's unclear to me why this wouldn't
Yeah.
probably produce a draw immediately. If you back draw,
It just seems.
that means he has to play here, right?
Yeah.
But then after this, there's no way this isn't gonna be a draw. Like, too many pawns are gonna get traded,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, one could
But yeah, B4
go
makes a lot of
check, I
sense.
suppose.
They do have checks for a while. Wait.
But I don't think it matters if you end up losing your A pawn. I don't see why that would matter.
How are you keeping your B pawn?
Sorry?
Or after you pick up the A, like, I guess you wouldn't want to go to the 6th rank, you'd want to go to
Are you thinking about this one?
the, yeah, after, well, yeah, I guess the check doesn't really matter. So
Well, I was just trying to get it to
Yeah.
be checked back, but I don't think it
I
matters.
don't think they would play
particularly.
that. But, so, they would
Yeah.
play,
I just want to figure out whether I should just take something or whether I should go A5 and A4.
yeah. That does look
But if the rook is there, I'll flip
It's not-
it. There's 3 pawns in line.
Yeah.
It's a little bit disturbing.
So, yeah, actually, rook C6 is way better than delivering it. Well, no, I guess it's the same.
So if I take that, well, wait a minute, doesn't this do it? Do what I want to do? If I take that, this will be forced.
And then,
And what if I just play here? Well, let's take a look at this. So the first point is that the king can guard these 2 pawns, right? That's very important. So you never have to, you never have to worry about losing these 2 pawns. Therefore, down to his pawn takes pawn or rook C6. Does that seem right? If C4, then you would play here. Black's not even a little bit worse, but it's just taking that.
yeah.
So,
Is there a different
okay,
way?
do we want to play pawn takes pawn or do we want to play rook C6?
Nothing looks super winning.
No, I think this is a complete draw, but I should demonstrate why it's a draw.
Pawn takes pawn or rook C6.
If pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, you're gonna lose the pawn unless you play this ridiculous rook move.
What about rook A4?
Rook A4.
No,
Does that
before.
not drop a pawn?
He
Before.
made some four.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Before everything.
But you get a little bit better of a position.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm understanding.
The pawn was over there.
Yeah, I think the pawn was,
was on the
C3.
C5.
on C3.
It was, yeah, C3 and the rook was.
Oh,
Yeah,
different.
rook
We're
Rook
talking
A4
about
in
rook
this
A4.
position.
Here, there's a check though. You could just check and take the pawn,
Ah.
You can check and take
and
the
then you're
pawn.
not even down here.
So if rook E1 check, king F.
Wait. You guys were talking about this move, right?
Yes,
Oh.
and so
So
are you
check.
saying rook E1 and then
King
king F2,
Right.
and then it feels that you would just
No,
win
this
the
will be a draw, I just gotta figure out the right way to do it.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have to make sure,
That's tricky, so.
I have to make sure that the black rook stays active, and I have to make sure that white only has 1 pawn on the queen side.
Yeah, so it looks
So
like
I
rook
think rook-
C1, then rook B4, rook takes C3.
Oh, I was gonna go rook B1.
But then he would just
Oh,
take
rook
on
takes
B4.
pawn.
Yeah, so
You
it's
are
like
correct.
rook C1.
Rook C1 is correct. And now this is forced. Yes, no? Or do you wanna try rook takes pawn? Actually, what do you guys wanna do here?
I think
I don't
that's
think I care.
I think rook takes pawn would be,
very.
It's not gonna matter because white's king isn't gonna be able to get out.
yeah. That's,
If white's king could get active, white would have a chance to win.
Mhm.
But white's king is not gonna get active. How do you wanna do this? C4 is out because I think
It just.
I can just probably check.
maybe.
And you can never cross the third rank. I see. Well, maybe that's less clear. This might be.
Yeah,
This
C4
might
with
be-
the threat of
this
B4
might
to
be
defend
the
the
only
pawn, and then you have two connected pass pawns.
Right. But I think it's not a problem. I still think
It's not a problem?
I don't think so. Because on here you have to put your king on the back row, right? Or do you want to try to sack?
I was gonna say, I wonder if you can sack and try to play the king and pawn versus the two pawns.
I would,
Because you won't have two connected pass pawns, that feels pretty.
I'd be happy losing a game.
Sorry, Adam. Tell me the move. Just I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I want to know how it goes. Because, black can make a queen too.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm wondering if I do fear though, just playing rook takes b4 here. Well, you can't play the, so king f3, rook takes
Right.
h2.
So okay, hang
rook
on.
b4. Yeah.
Okay, so here I was just gonna check and take.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
yeah.
utterly.
So you do have to go f1 if you play it. Okay.
So,
yeah.
No,
I
I
don't know
think you
about
have to play
Yeah.
G1. Oh, you're gonna sack that.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think you should. I only think you should sack the pawn if you can move the king forward. So
G1,
there, I would probably play g1.
Okay.
and then try to get it to H3,
And I'll play here.
and then back to G2,
Uh-huh.
and then, check
Then I'll play
again,
here.
and then H3.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think you make.
You're gonna go up to H3?
Yeah.
That feels
Well,
like
that's gonna be.
That's how, I feel like that's a better version of the pawn sack, because you end up
Really?
your king wandering up to opposition land. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, I'm afraid of that.
Okay,
it feels like
that's a
people
little
are trying to
scary.
get mated
Oh,
out
wait.
or like that. Maybe
Is
not, 'cause it didn't
is
seem like
G4?
it was
Then I check, and you're probably. dead.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
you won't win.
Invite the
that's for
check again. Yeah, because I like being on there because you could shield yourself.
sure.
from
To
the
me,
beat.
you walked into something
Okay, so-
where if you're unlucky, you'll get mated. And if you're lucky,
Okay, I didn't see the
if
king.
you're lucky, it'll just be a draw. So, let us establish a general rule. Let's try not to checkmate ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And believe me, I did it. I'm embarrassed to say the last international competition I played in, I was in Czech, and I had two different places I could put my king. One was ever so slightly better for me, and the other, the guy had a move and it was a forced mate.
Mm.
Guess which one I chose? Okay, so we won't do this.
So wait, I'm still looking.
So
at
my
that.
point, I was actually trying to make a point.
Oh,
My
sorry.
point was that if you want to play for a win here, you have to sack your H pawn.
Mhm.
Does anybody disagree with that?
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
that looks way better.
So the only way you can sack your H pawn, and you also have a second problem, is you can't go king on F3 because you'll drop the
Move
B
out the
pawn,
B
right?
pawn.
Well,
the
so
only
that's
way to do
doubly
it-
stupid. It means you have to put your king on the back row.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'll take that. Now, you'll of course take this, and now let's just think about this. What you have here is a situation where white's king can't play, and black can make an outside pass pawn on the H file. There is no way this is losing. It's just a question of staying active. So, it looks to me like you wouldn't want to allow pawn to c5. Does that seem reasonable? Right? Because that's how white's going to win. And that's another thing that's very helpful. You ask yourself, how am I going to lose? Well, I'm going to lose because those two pawns get on the move, right? But you got a perfectly good move here. Now let's just stop and look at this position. Black's play is super simple. He's going to move the H pawn up the board, or a second idea. Can you imagine what would happen if black goes king f5, king g4? I'm not even sure black isn't the one trying to win this game.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure it shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah,
But
a little close.
I've won worse positions, that's for sure. So, does anybody actually think white is trying to win this still? And if so, how?
Well, based on what you said, king b5 cuts the king off from coming
Rook to
forward.
b5.
Yeah, rook b5. And
And I think that makes some sense, right? Because you're stopping the black king from getting active, that must be a good thing.
So,
And you're also threatening to get your pawns further up the board, right? Because then you're threatening rook b6 check. But I don't think it's gonna be good enough.
because h4.
Exactly. These guys will disappear. And now let's take a look. If you can figure out, okay,
But now I would, if I was white and I was just trying to think of some grand scheme, I would like to have my king on h1, my rook on on d5, where I could start to push the d pawn.
right, but you're gonna lose your b pawn if you do that.
So, go ahead.
I think the only way that you really get a way to win this, well, no, okay. The problem here is that it's gonna be black's king getting its way over to the queen side.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
If I can't get my
'Cause-
king to say g3 or f3, I'll send it the other way.
'Cause
And
it's-
then all I have to do is make it so you just can't move, because think about it, no matter what happens, white is gonna have to take care of the h pawn, right? He's either gonna have to use his rook to do it or his king to do it, right? Well, if he uses his rook, that's gonna cost a queenside pawn. Can't win. The black king will just go to the other side and it'll end in king versus king. If you use your king, which I think you can do, right? Like you could play king g1 here if you felt like it. But then I'm wondering, if you put your king on g1, try to see if you can picture this position, okay? Try to picture a position with the white king in the corner, the black pawn on h2. So in that position, the black king is stalemated. The white king is stalemated, right? Can everybody see the position
Yeah.
I'm talking about in their heads?
Yeah.
Okay. At that moment, if the black king runs over to the queen side, how is that not a dead draw? So you almost have to do, you have to do it in reverse. This is where endgames are so weird, right? Like normally in a middle game, you're trying to calculate out variations, right? But in the end game, it's almost like you have to know where you want to end up, and then how do you get there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could just trade your b pawn for the h pawn just so your king could sort of get to the queen side and help.
But wouldn't the black king be way too close? Not to mention you have a secondary problem in that your king is going to be cut off on the third or the fourth row. But
So I do have a question.
hang on, well,
Okay.
it's yours to say. Tell me exactly, like, let's do actualness here.
Like, if-
Are we starting with king g1 or are we starting with something else?
I'd say king g1.
Okay, so I'll play h3. You see, the problem is gonna be, the minute your rook leaves the b pawn, I'm gonna attack it.
But would you be attacking it from behind or beside, or do you think it?
Behind.
because I think that gives room for a potential side defense as well.
Yeah,
So this is
Okay,
all-
okay, let's try to do concrete. Let's do a concrete version.
So,
Rook D5.
Sorry?
Rook D5.
Okay, so if you do rook d5, then there's the problem that you might be able to defend from here, right? That is a problem. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I believe, is play this. No rook d3 for you. Now I'm just threatening rook b3 with a hopeless draw. How would you have anything better than just rook b?
Yeah.
which is why I think if we go back to the previous position, I was actually thinking about playing at C5.
Okay, hang on. You're
Oh,
talking,
the-
you're talking about this, no, no.
No,
King doesn't have to
yeah,
wait.
mining it
That position. No, even with the pawn on H3 is fine. But in this position, instead of rook D5, C5.
You wanna go here.
Because now the
Right.
king-
I got you. So this one is different. So in this one, I wanna make it so your king can't do anything. Once you commit to this,
So H2.
I wanna play here. Alright, so now your king can't play, right? So now I need to just shoot my king now. That should be pretty straightforward.
You don't want
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe I should bring my king up to g file and try to mate. I should think about that, shouldn't I? So if I push my king and you go c6 check, I go king g4. Maybe that's even easier. I was just gonna bring my king over and that's a dead draw.
So let's say
So
king G, C6 check.
Well, hang on a second. Like I wanna show that this is just a dead draw, right? Like you can't do anything here. You're down a king.
Yeah.
I was start with B4.
No, but then,
Sure, but tell me how you do this without eventually making it so you can't move
go
anybody.
to, can't you go on like B4 to check and then
So
C4?
ideas would be like if I could play D4 in some kind of way, play rook B6, rook H6.
Okay,
I was thinking of
hang on
like,
a sec.
if you go to like C6 trip, you go on like the fourth rank file, and you go like a
Okay,
B4.
are you talking about this one now?
Yeah,
So C6 and then king G4.
then king B4 check, and then you gotta go to
Sorry?
C4.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Rook
saying.
B4.
So rook B4 check.
Okay. You're going for the rook c4 position. Is that right? Is that
Oh,
what
wait,
we're
no.
doing?
That would get you made.
Oh.
Well, and then you play.
Oh, wait, no, it was
C4.
C4.
Why does it get you made?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
get you.
It doesn't get you made.
Yeah,
I just don't think it gets you,
Winning.
well, hang on.
No.
Let me think about it.
That looks pretty good. You keep the rook off or the king off the third rank after that.
Maybe rook
Yeah.
B2 for black. Maybe.
But yeah, rook c3.
Yeah.
I need to think of the right way to do this. Okay. Right, so what this means, good, very good. But what this means is that my original idea was probably right. I
Then you
should
should just
probably
run
be
it to the
putting
side,
that way.
So that's cool.
Right.
That actually wins. That's a really good practical way of doing this.
Okay, so this is already here? No, hang on a sec. This was here already. Remember, that was what
Yeah,
my
that's
thing,
easy.
but that wasn't my instinct. My instinct was, wait, my king's on this file. Wait, is my king on
It was
the
there,
file?
yeah.
I'm not even sure it's gonna matter, but it might.
I was thinking of combining.
But that's where it was because we were thinking about it going around to L5 and then G4.
Combining the.
Wait a sec. What just happened there? On C6, what if I play this way though?
Is that different from what you did before? Just walking.
Sure, because I went to G4, which allowed this rook B4, rook C4 thing. What if I just don't?
Oh, okay.
But that was, wasn't that like our idea to trade the C pawn for the H pawn, so we could just.
Yeah, but that's a hopeless draw. So I need to show you that it's a hopeless draw because you don't know it's a hopeless draw. How will you get to it? Just tell me what the variation that you're thinking of. you're thinking of winning my h2 pawn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, does this mean you want to go rook h5?
No, just like C7.
Sorry?
Just like C7.
Rook
just
where?
It just
C7.
means pawn C7, because then you'll have to take the rook and then you take the, king takes H2.
Can't you take that? No, you can't.
No, it wouldn't be in time, so then
So
king
you're gonna
takes
take
H2.
this. Okay, so, but you can't cut my king. off.
Yeah, the
My
king is gonna
king's
be too
way
close.
too close.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna surround your pawn and take it,
Yeah.
right? Your king is a million miles away.
It was
I
a-
thought you were gonna try to take this pawn with your rook and then save one pawn, but I'm still way too close.
Yeah.
That's the thing of it.
There's a variation with the rook to d5 in the position where the king's on g6 and our pawn's on c4 and b3.
Pawn on C4.
This, and then I don't think, this pawn doesn't have our advance yet.
It's here.
Yeah, and I don't think the black pawn
Okay,
is.
and then, well, in this one I have to,
It's white's move here,
right, and we
And-
tried rook d5,
Yeah.
and we tried c5.
combining those.
We're running out of things to try though.
Where we play that to keep the king cut off, and you know, they have to play.
Okay, but what move are you suggesting? It's
So-
White's turn.
I don't think that the pawn was the pawn on h2 yet in this variation?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't? Yeah, I guess
Not
it's
in
not.
the least.
Okay.
Because the pawn can go to h2
it's-
anytime it wants.
We rook to d5, and their rook has to go to c3,
Yeah,
and then
how's that not just repeating though?
and then we play c5 there and
No.
combine those two
No.
and sack.
If you did, no, that's not gonna work.
No.
No, because the rook, anytime you can get a rook behind a pawn,
Yeah.
you can't queen, right? And let's
No.
think, let's not lose sight of the fact, black's not down anything here,
Yeah.
right? Like, why would this be better for black? In fact, never forget this. Black is the guy who has the pawn farthest up the board,
Yeah.
not white.
That's very greedy. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to the original position, because I think actually in the original position, I don't think Mike played the best try.
Which variation?
He played a reasonable try, to be sure. So the thing that's helpful with this kind of stuff is knowing what positions are theoretically drawn, because then you know what you're heading to, right? Like if you're trying to play a rook endgame without knowing what you're trying to get to, it's very difficult, because now, I know I did say that there were often times when I didn't know if I was winning, drawing, or losing. But that wasn't usually the case with rook endings. With rook endings, I usually knew, okay, if I can get to this, I'm going to be okay. And then I would try to figure it out. And you'd be shocked how many times it turned on one move. Like it literally endgames like this. Sometimes you win them you draw them by,
Yeah.
or win them by a tempo. Okay, so I think this is better.
So my question here is then, because I thought about this a lot, so is there a great source that you would recommend?
Yes.
that deals with it?
Practical Rook Endings is the name of the book.
Okay.
Practical Rook Endings.
So
It teaches you about like the Philidor position and like.
It
See, those are
it'll-
theoretical then, so.
There are a lot of theoretical endings, but it has a section on practical ones.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, if you play like a b4, I thought that would like lock up the queen side and
Well, yeah, and this is still a draw but I think it's a draw probably because
the king could catch up to the e pawn.
okay, let's talk general principles. In a rook endgame, you only have one piece other than your king, right? So you want to try to keep the one piece you have active, if you can. Once in a while, you have to go passive, but generally speaking, it ends in disaster.
Mhm.
So, you look at this position, and you say to yourself, what is the most active rook move black has at their disposal?
me, I'm a beginner.
No, but he liked it too. What is it about, like, are you liking it because
Visually,
it makes it so that pawn on E3 can't move? Is that why you like
Except
it?
it can. Also, it visually is kind of like cutting off the king.
But
Except,
the king's already
yeah.
cut off.
yeah.
Maybe like.
So just
Well, because if you say active, then I think of it doing
Yeah.
something
Go
functional,
more,
like
do more stuff.
attacking,
Yeah.
cutting off a
Now
rank,
we're
attacking
getting
pieces.
somewhere.
and that sort
So where can you send that rook where it's actually gonna cause trouble?
So F3 isn't causing trouble.
Not in the least.
Yeah, no, because
of thing. I don't know, so, and I don't want to be pretentious, because it
D5?
does feel like, go ahead.
Maybe rook D5?
Of course that's the right move. Think about it.
Because it's an
you
open
guys.
file, but it didn't look like it's.
No. Let's think about this, right? The guy, that rook guy, is either gonna go to D3 or D2 or whatever. Now, okay, it's white's move. The only thing I can see on this board is that you have a possibility to maybe scoop up the A6 pawn. I think if you push the E pawn, that's never gonna go anywhere. I mean, black will be running around scooping up pawns and the black king will deal with it.
so your best bet here is that you want to defend your C pawn with your rook right now.
I don't think you can make progress if you do that though.
Yeah.
I was thinking you would probably have to go for the A6 pawn.
Okay.
Can't you go like C4?
No, because once black takes it, you're not even ahead of pawn.
Rook C8?
Well, right, but you think the black rook is just gonna like do nothing?
It goes to like D3 and then. But then the A6 pawn looks weak, so. Yeah. I don't know.
What did you, this is your idea?
Maybe.
Okay, well, like, couldn't I just check and protect it?
Yeah.
Then I'd have a pawn 3 squares away from queen.
Yeah.
I don't think you want that.
So I guess the question here is, what is black seriously threatening? Is the first thing we have to consider.
Well, black is seriously planning to play there
Okay.
and liquidate off as many pawns as he can.
So my next question is.
So here's the question. Do we want to go for the A6 pawn, or do we want to try to defend? Do we want to try to defend the C3 pawn?
So I
See,
think you
I
have
would
to go
probably
for the
play
A6 pawn.
A6, but I think maybe either are possible, because you could play rook C8 and then king F2 to defend the pawn. But that means you're just admitting a draw.
We're gonna get to this, but it's really sort of vexing me that you guys are so attracted to this. So I want to try to get that out of your systems.
Yeah, the rook doesn't have a whole lot of options here, I guess. You can't move laterally
No,
anymore.
it's
and-
an awful sport.
Why is that's a
Why? Because I also think that it means that it ties white's pieces down too, though. So.
But does it? Like, in
you
the
can still
sen-
make
in-
progress
in
on the
the
queen
sense-
side now.
In the sense that, okay, so first off, this means that if I play king g2, what, you're committing yourself to playing g4, right? Okay. Well, I don't see how I could lose by doing this.
It's
Okay.
not that I don't think that white can lose.
No, I don't mean the game, I just mean I don't think I could be making things worse. Okay. So now the H pawn is under attack. What? So in a position like this, it shouldn't be that hard for me to let you have that one in order to trade off these and win that one. I just have to figure out the right sequence, kind of.
Is it?
And I don't want, and you know what another bad thing about this is? Just, it probably doesn't matter that much, but it means that if I have thing I'm wondering about too, though I'm not sure about this. This is funny. Right? Because now that pawn, now I may have a new theme, right? I may have a new theme to win. I may be able to trade a bunch of pawns over there to win both these guys, and then I have an H and G pawn, which is winning.
Okay.
Are you guys convinced, or do I need to spend more time
I
on
think I'm
this?
convinced that this is a bad instinct to have, like, oh, it's definitely just because we're so used to being like, oh, I get the rook on the 7th, and then it gobbles all the pawns on the 7th rank, and that just looks good for what a rook should be doing in the endgame.
Mhm.
But this is just not how
No,
that
this is,
position works at all.
this is much more of a kind of endgame where you're trying to clean off as many pawns as possible.
For the-
Arriving at an endgame where you're down a pawn, but you can defend it,
Yeah, for black.
right? So this is the way to go, because after this, I
Yeah.
don't even know what white should do. Like, I'm open to suggestions.
I would much rather for white play the position with the rook on F3 now. I want to go back to that. I have answers there.
Yeah.
It
So
looks like
rook
rook
e6,
E6
there could be rook e6,
Yeah.
Rook e4.
rook e4. Tell me about rook e4. Say I go rook.
Oh, I see that.
Say I go rook d3.
Yeah, and C4, I guess. But is that better than any other thing you could get?
Take.
No, the rook still gets behind on E3.
Take.
No, you go to, like-
Take.
No, you go like rook d1 and then rook c1.
Just
Just
for
go
the
behind.
record,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Rook e4.
Excellent idea.
So,
just
rook c1. So.
I mean, I was thinking maybe rook e6.
That's the.
Just for the record, I want to be able to take in your expertise and like absorb that minus engine stuff. But I was curious, and the engine does not place the position, doesn't evaluate it even like a unclear margin. It's still basically equal, even at rook f6.
Yeah,
So I think
because
it's really
because I
helpful.
guess the engine can see so far into it that
There's
it
some-
just sees it liquidating down to draws in every scenario.
Yeah.
And
it's-
that is a point. You're making a valid point. There could be more than one way to draw this.
I just
right?
feel like.
But I think it's better if you try to use general principles, because sometimes it won't be like that.
Yeah, and we can't calculate the
You have to have a
five.
No,
heuristic
I
approach to
know.
the
You have to
endgame.
be 2,700 to be able to see deeply enough into these things.
So just having a good understanding
Yes.
of what a good end game move is here, like how your rook should be.
Yeah, and I mean, okay,
general principle.
in some sense, this is actually maybe not that great an endgame example to be looking at. But let me explain why. You can come back to this or not, right? You need to know certain things. Like, you need to know that every single position, and I mean every position, where if you're down a pawn, but your king is sort of in front of the pawn. Now, so this guy's going this way,
Yeah.
which is actually not right, is it? It should be the other
Yeah.
way. Okay, so, all right. Let's get back to something that was said that I think is important. All right.
If it's whites go, you have the Philodor defense, and if not, you can
Yeah.
the king to the 6.
Yeah, I want, so, okay, I don't know if you guys know this by name. He called it Philodor's defense. What Philodor's defense is you place your rook on the 3rd row. And the reason you're doing this, specifically, is to stop the black king from getting in front of the pawn. So, okay, why would that be important? Well, that would be important because if you end up with some position like this, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the root position. Like, when you start to study rook endgames, you always start with a thing called Uchina's position. It's like, Lucena.
Mhm.
And the idea behind Lucina's position is that if you can make the guy get his king away, and you can get your king in front of the pawn, like this would be the example. Some kind of situation like this is winning, if you know what you're doing. Okay, this rook's stupid, let's put it here.
Check the king.
Okay.
And then back
Okay.
and forth. Agree.
This is a winning position.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you know not to allow that.
Yeah, as a defender.
And if you're in some kind of rec ending, I mean, I once beat a woman grandmaster who I guess was like rated 2,500,
Mhm.
where I was ahead 2 pawns. And the winning method was to let her win one of the pawns so I could get to this.
Yeah.
Without knowing that, would have been a draw. So the point is, you can't allow that. So what you have to know is, now let's say we're in this position. Maybe, let's say it's like this.
White's in check.
Yeah, white's in check. Alright. Let's say it's like this.
And whose moves?
I guess it's black's move.
Then. Wait.
So, I'm gonna show you 3 theoretical endings. You need to know these 3. If you know these 3, you can probably get up to 16 or 1700. With just knowing these 3. The first one is that if the person pushes the pawn, you have never-ending checks from behind, and they can't do a thing. You'll just check them until hell freezes over.
And does that apply when your rook is on the 7th like that?
I don't think it matters. The point is if you push the pawn to the 6th instead
You
of
can't
leaving with the
escape
king,
the
then you
checks.
just get.
That's all you gotta remember.
Yeah.
The second thing. Alright, let's say it's white's move. People have a tendency to throw this check.
No.
And after here,
Yeah.
Yeah, you've helped.
you might lose. But,
Let's come to the
second position, Philidor's defense position. You play this. And why are you doing this? You're not allowing the king to cross this line. But, eventually when the person loses patience and pushes this pawn, oh, what do you know? We've got that other position. So we save ourselves again.
Mhm.
So, an
So,
important concept for the person who's down a pawn is that you can achieve a draw by infinitely checking from behind.
if the pawn is pushed too far, but what if the pawn isn't pushed too far?
Yeah.
So, for instance, in this position, alright, let's say they play here.
Like if they have to back up into your king's opposition.
Okay, try just to work with what's in front of you.
Okay.
Supposing the person plays here, what is the right idea for white?
White needs to either play something like rook f3, just staying on the 6th rank and going back and forth.
Okay, you got it.
Yes.
That's the perfect answer, right? You don't give up your defensive position. You just bounce along that rank. And then eventually, there's only so much that can happen, right? The person is either gonna put you in check, no problem, it's changed nothing, right? Or the person is gonna try to come around, big deal, who cares? We're just batting back and forth. Sooner or later, you know the rule, right? 50 moves without a capture or a pawn push,
Yeah.
you claim a draw. So what you do, I think you're allowed to do this, though you might want to check with Mike because he's a tournament director, like a certified tournament director. I would circle the move on my score sheet where this pawn went to C4. And I would say, oh, that's move 40. I would know that if that pawn was still there on move 90, I just claim a draw. I don't even think you move. I think you just put your hand up ready to go get the arbiter and say, I'm claiming a draw. Now, the instant the person pushes the pawn, This one's, I think, really easy to see.
Yeah.
You're just gonna put the person in check forever. Or they're gonna run so far away to get out of the checks, you're just gonna come behind the pawn and take it. Of course, that's a draw. So the point is, there's no particular danger in that kind of scenario. So you want to know Lucina, you want to know Philidor to start. 100% you want to know these two things. Okay? Then I think you start branching into more complicated stuff, because without knowing Lucina and Philidor, you're lost. Like, you're just not going to have a clue. Now, from a theoretical point of view, hi.
Hi. Just questions. Everybody here playing tonight? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey Mike, before I forget, I'm not gonna be here February 29th.
Okay.
I'm gonna go up to Canada.
It's because it's leap year.
Hmm?
Leap year.
No, I'm just kidding.
What time does the game start?
Starts at 7.
7 and it's slated to last.
It's 50 plus 10 as fast as you can play moves. That's a good improving game. And Jerica, playing? Okay. Goes towards the city championship. As long as you win. Or even if you don't. We got a new guy playing tonight. His name is Steve. Anyway.
Generally speaking, if you're down one pawn and everything is on the same side, you can make a draw. But it's not so easy sometimes. And generally, the fewer pawns that are on the board, the easier your drawing chances. So that's kind of an important principle, right? So if you're in some kind of scenario where, you know, if you played not great, and you found yourself in a scenario like this, you would want to trade off the pawns on the queen side, because you want it to be a one-front war. And that's true of any position where you're down a pawn. If you can get everything on one side of the board, your chances of making a draw go way up. Right? So this would be a pretty practical one. Typically, if you're down two pawns, it has to be some kind of exceptional position that I'm not even going to show you. I'll show you an example, but I'm not going to look at it. So it may seem hard to believe, but positions like this are drawn if you play properly. White can draw this. Black, of course, is going this way. There are positions that you can't win.
What the effort nature fund?
Yeah, it's very rare, and I've never even had to do it once in like 50 years. But I know it's a draw, but I'm not saying I would know how to do it. I might not. Yeah.
This might be a little bit too far out of the way, but I remember learning somewhere, I don't know why, I didn't remember what it was that made this the case, but the special properties of the knight and rook's pawns in endgames, I understand that on the side of the board you have a lot better chances of
They're
pushing.
often stalemate resources.
Yeah.
Is what it
You
is.
kind of want a knight's pawn and not a rook's pawn, but what is the difference between a knight's pawn and a bishop's pawn for these
Well,
purposes?
it depends on what pieces are left.
I mean, here it's a connected pawn, so that matters a lot, but if that were a knight's pawn instead.
Generally speaking, if the pawns are connected, you generally win, but you don't always win. So if the black rook were passive, let's say it was like this.
Yeah.
My memory is that this is a draw,
You just move the rook.
right?
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a way to make progress here, right? So that's a useful piece of general knowledge. And why is that useful? Well, it's useful because if you're down two pawns, no, it's more useful if you're up two pawns, you would know never to allow this, right? Because if you allow this, you're not going to win. It's going to be a draw. There's other things, and I mean, it's just, every generation has books that are new and better. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what your generation's good books are. I know what my generation's good books are. And the ones that I used were called Practical Chess Endings and Practical Rook Endings. And Rook Endings for the most part,
Who's the author though?
Keres, Paul
Okay.
Keres,
Huh.
Keres. And the Rook Endings one, well, there's a book called Rook Endings by Keres and Loveland Fish. If you do those, you're good. I mean, you can apparently become an IM knowing that. So I mean, let's call it general knowledge. It's good to have general knowledge of certain kinds of endgames. Okay, so for instance, here's an endgame. We will give black white bishop, and we will give white a black bishop. Black is coming this way. What do we think?
A bishop in there.
This feels like a draw.
Yeah, it should be a draw.
Yeah, it should be a draw.
It seems like
It should be a draw.
you can only.
And the reason is,
The bishop's the wrong.
if you play here, how the heck is the guy gonna end up getting in G5? Anytime you can sacrifice the bishop for the two pawns,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a draw. Okay, so what if we make it blacksmith? That was way too easy, right? Alright, so let's try this.
And the
So-
two move
What is it that we need to do?
what are we asking, how to draw it as white or how to win it as black?
No, you can't win it as black if white's careful. I'm trying to figure out. You have to eventually set it up. Now here's the thing. If you mess it up and those pawns get too far up the board, you will lose. So you have to kind of figure out, well, what is going to be the drawing pattern? In other words, black's going to put his king on G6, and then he's going to go H5, H4. And when we get up to there,
I think white can just like jump on F3 and G3, and then if black pushes G4 sometime, we could go on H4 maybe.
well, okay, I guess the main question is, where does the bishop need to be though? Right? Like you have to figure out, where is the bishop going to be most effective? It seems to me,
Where's the sacrifice?
it actually seems, I could be wrong about this, but I think the bishop has to be there, right? Like if it looks like this,
How'd you come to that conclusion?
I don't think I'm right though, because the king is gonna be up here. Because there has to be a way to make it so that you can sacrifice the bishop for the two
For the
pawns.
pawn,
Or
That
you
would
can't
require that
make
the
the
king-
draw.
That you're touching the pawn with your king and they're not, basically.
Well, you can't put your king on these
Yeah.
light squares.
It was a lot easier when it was blacksmith, or I mean whitesmith, but.
It would be a lot easier.
So it seems inevitable that they.
I don't even, so.
You know what, I think it's the bishop here and the king here. I think.
So let me clarify, because I'm rusty, so I may not remember. But the question is, if there's only the H pawn,
If it's only the H pawn, the bishop has to be the same color.
yeah, that's right. the
So
same.
that wins, this is a hopeless draw. This is a hopeless draw.
Yeah, you can just.
Yeah, but if
Because
you-
you sit in the
Yeah,
corner.
yeah, so my point is, he can't just sack for one of the pawns.
No,
He
he's
has to
gotta
make
get
sure
both of
He gets
them.
both of them, because it's a
Exactly.
light square bishop. right?
Exactly right. That is absolutely exactly right. But here's the thing I'm seeing, there's not really any way to stop this position. Like, there's just no such thing. So the question is, when it gets to be like this, where do the pieces need to be? Now, you can stop this pawn by having your king here. But when he starts moving this pawn up, you need to be able to go bishop takes pawn, right? So if we have a position like this, very clearly, you need to be able to sacrifice your bishop on that square.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's just take a look at this. If the guy, this one's easy. If he ever pushes here, you're just going back and forth forever and ever,
Yeah.
right? Not hard. But what happens if he runs his king around? Yeah, okay. Say he plays here.
Okay. And he's eventually gonna have to get to, I guess the closest light square he can run to is E4, yeah. And
Yeah,
at that
he's
point,
gonna try to
your
get his king
bishop's-
to here.
your bishop's gonna be threatening H4 when it moves to G5. And so he has to,
So I'm thinking,
Yeah,
I'm thinking it might already be too late, right? Like it needs to be like this. This is a draw. I can see in my head that this is a draw, right? You have to see that this is a drawing position because there's no way to get the king around without dropping the H pawn or moving the H pawn. So this is very clearly a draw,
and
right? If this ever goes up, you sack your bishop, no more pawns, it's a draw. Draw. Fine. This seems to be a loss because how can you avoid check, king here,
and so the difference is just you didn't,
king here, and now you can't stop this. And then when the king moves, oh wait, is it still stalemate?
I don't think so. Can't you play G2,
No way.
king takes H2, and then F2 guards the queen square?
How do you put him in check?
Oh yeah, I see.
Well, that's
so
kind
you
of
just sit
cool.
around on that A7, G.
Wow.
diagonal.
How do you do this without stalemating?
Yeah.
When's next move is take?
I don't think you should play H3. You should just go. for-
You don't think? Oh, you mean H2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. So you just need to. Yeah, you know what? Of course you're right about that. You just need to play there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 30 mate, that's beautiful.
Okay, so we only really discovered one thing. You can't let the pawns get too far. You have to be able to envision what the right defensive formation is
And here's the
first.
thing that happens that's being on a diagonal and the king in front. I can vaguely remember that, but you want to set up the defense as early as possible.
Yeah,
before they
it's
get
been
to
a
the
while
6th.
since I looked at it too,
Yeah.
really a long time. There was another one that saved me once, in opposite colored bishop endings, there's some funny rule.
Rather
Like
walking behind.
if the pawns are like only split by two, like 2 files apart, that's a draw. I think 3 is a draw, but if it's more than that, it's a win. So that's good to know too. That did save me once or twice. knowing that. What time is it?
And so you,
Sorry? 24? Okay, I'm trying to think of all these general like little things that are useful.
and so,
In rook endings, rook pawns are the worst. Like when you have an extra pawn with a rook, it's almost always a draw. Oh, this was a great story. Okay, so this is freakish, like just absolutely freakish. I need a bishop for this. Okay, black is coming this way.
Okay.
I wish I could remember if this was on a light square or a black square. I had a friend who when we were like in our early 20s, he was rated about 2360, and he was literally playing one of the top 10 players in the world. And by some miracle, my friend outplayed him, and my friend had a rook and a rook pawn versus a bishop. And my friend was just absolutely sure he was going to beat him. And he pushed his pawn too fast. You know what? It has to be a dark square bishop for this to work, because you need to control G3. And it turns out there's actually a drawn position in here. Like, which you think, how could that be? But there is. Like, there's a position where you can't make progress. And I think this might be it, you know? Because what happens here is exactly what you said. you get to some kind of position, like, okay, like, say this can clearly make it up to here, right? And okay, so you're passing, and you could even get the king in the corner easily enough. But how do you make progress? How do you make progress from this position?
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's just yeah. You would have to sit there for
And
hours and try to.
so there's this book, I think it's called Encyclopedia of Chess Endgames. This sort of thing now with the table bases, these are obsolete, right? You can just put this into a table base, it'll show you everything you need to know. But before there were table bases, which was in my lifetime, I looked this up because I was really curious. And it's totally paradoxical. It's like positions where the pawn is on this rank are winning, and positions where the pawn is on this rank are drawing. Now, I don't know why. Like, I never cared enough to learn, like, why is that? But I did care enough to put in my brain that don't resign this, right? That's what you need to know. You do not resign in games like this because there are freakish draws.
The way that I think of, like, the only way I'm seeing in this situation, you like can't get your king in to help push the pawn, and he has a lot of waiting moves. The only thing I'm thinking is, like, can you stop?
If you brought your king to here, well, we know that rook versus bishop is an easy draw.
Yeah.
Though there is something you would want to know about rook versus bishop. You want to run to the corner that's the opposite color
Yeah,
of the
you
bishop.
always want to stay.
It's amazing to me that you know that. What have you read? Like, you must have
A
read
lot of stuff. I'm 17 something. I got into class A and then I had some drifting. But what I would recommend to everybody seriously is on Chessable is Dvoretsky's in-game manual.
Oh, sure.
And people say it's too hard, but what I would recommend you do is change the setting to priority only. And so then it takes all of the massive stuff and kind of reduces it to the essentials.
Yeah.
And then you do this stuff out. And so these things about opposite bishop colors and saying
I've got a copy of that.
There's actually a book with the name. It's literally Essential Knowledge of the Endgame.
Yeah.
That's the name of the book. You could read that.
Or John Bartholomew's From Amateur to I Am is a really practical. I love the way he teaches in-game stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that's much more.
Dvoretsky's is good to like take.
I know.
Yeah, but I'm familiar with the Carey's book too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Fisher translated that book from one language to another.
I don't know. I had it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that was a drag was originally there was only no algebraic version, but there is certainly now. Oh, here's one you guys I bet have never seen. I used this to make a draw with the GM ones. Okay, so we'll give white a pawn and an extra bishop, and we'll even, okay, white's going this way. Would you believe this is a draw?
Yeah.
The bishop is actually the right color, and you've still got a pawn, and you still can't win.
How do you stop? Yeah, it's.
Because the king could just defend the.
Because how do you take the 87 pawn? Can the
You can't shoulder the king off of the c7 square, and it'll just be a stalemate either way.
Right.
If you
It
shoulder
ends
the
in
king off of
stalemate.
c7, it'll be a
It
stalemate.
always ends in stalemate.
Yeah.
Or 50 move rule, right? And,
That's really
and to the best of my knowledge, this is the only draw where the bishop is actually the right color, and you still can't win. So
Like
this
if
is
the pawns were on.
anywhere else.
Can you
If
show
the
how
pawns-
to win that if the pawns are two squares?
Sure.
So on A5.
You'll just swing the guy and take the pawn.
Oh, because you can get around.
It won't,
It's
even,
not
it, won't
stalemate.
even, it won't even be hard. You'll get
Yeah.
to here, the guy will pass.
Yeah.
You'll be here, the guy will run away.
So it's just the
and you'll
resource
just
of being
take
at the back of the board and staying.
It's a stalemate resource.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A really elegant form of combinations, like really elegant, are stalemate combinations. So the tactics book I had, it had some of the most beautiful combinations that were stalemate combinations, and
Yeah.
some of them were in middle games. That was the most bizarre thing. There were actually sequences where it ended in stalemate, where somebody was giving away all their pieces.
And so the stuff that good players do at end games is they know all this stuff about like which knights or rook spawn,
Right, right.
and they plan around like what logistics are required to get to that position.
I think of it as like having a map.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like, let's say you know you want to get to Nashville, and there are all these
It's
different
like, well,
ways,
this doesn't
but
lead there.
you have to know that you want to get to Nashville,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go down to Jackson, Mississippi, if
Mhm.
you know you don't want to go on 55 if you want to go to Nashville.
I think in Dvoretsky's book, there's like segments that are just like tragic endgame blunders by GMs, where it just shows you like a table-based drawn, like a drawing position in like 2 moves, and like this grandmaster resigned in
And
this
some of
position.
them are crazy, right? Like I remember seeing one like that where it was a queen and 2 pawns against a queen and 1 pawn, and the 1 pawn won. Like just crazy stuff. Because the
Yeah,
guy,
endgames are so.
I know what happened too. The guy playing it, these were grandmasters. The guy saw every other move was a draw, and so he played the 1 move he hadn't tried, but it allowed him to win. This is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So some of it is-
Probably at times.
I think Hans there's like a clip of Hans doing that, where he like.
But the
boxes
thing
his-
that you're actually telling us, I think another this book I'm referencing by John Bartholomew, which is from Amateur to IM. That's what he really says, is that to play these practical end games, you have these guideposts, that these theoretical draws or wins.
Yeah.
And that's how grandmasters are playing and asking themselves, do I simplify? Because if I'm
Yeah.
better and I have a chance, I don't want to simplify into something I know is a theoretical draw.
Yeah.
But if I'm worse, then I'm happy to simplify into something I know is a theoretical draw.
Right.
And they sort of know that, and it's the dance that they're playing the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's a great
right.
book though for.
Yeah, I'll take a look for it. I mean, the last people, Silman was writing good books. Dvoretsky was known, like when I was studying chess more seriously, his was the best.
Do you see the clip where the grandmaster fell for the scholar's mate?
I don't believe it.
It was in like an English. It wasn't Scholar's Mate like straight up, but it
No,
was.
but it was like a lady.
Well,
It was
you
kinda
know,
like
I actually had something like that happen. So I learned chess from my grandfather, and my grandfather was 2100. So I was lucky, right? I got to learn from somebody
Yeah.
who knew how to play chess. But I remember one time, like he literally beat me hundreds and hundreds of games in a row.
Mhm.
But I remember one time we were playing late at night, and he was an old man, and I thought, hell, I'll try Scholar's Mate against him.
And he played Knight F6.
He made some move and got checkmated. Was he furious? and I said, okay, now I'm going to bed. And he said, oh no, you're not. We played again, and he beat the hell out of me. But yeah.
That's so funny.
I think to learn the end game, you have to lose a lot of games, and then you have to kind of study, and you have to. But it's not. It shouldn't be an overwhelming task, because I think if you know, like, and I'm just gonna make up a number that I think to be roughly right. If you knew 30 positions, you could become an expert or a master. You know, it's not like you have to know 200 positions or something. It's not like that. And
30 things.
But no, but to know on the inside out, right? Because I have definitely been in a game where I know the Lucina position, but under a time scramble,
Right.
can't figure it out to save
Right.
my life. So
Yeah.
you really have
It
to
has to
drill
be
it
connected.
to where
But-
it's instinctive. And
But
you
here's
just
the beautiful thing, right? I didn't have this, but you guys do.
Mhm.
If you go on chess.com,
Mhm.
you can put in a Lucina position and you can make it a 3-minute 3-2 or something,
Mhm.
and you can just drill it until you can do it just no problem. I mean, it's not,
I've never tried that.
yeah, I think that's what you have to do.
So like you take a position.
You
that's just
put
like
in the
a
position,
rook ending.
and then it says training, like it'll say end game training. And it'll let you build the position, give a time control.
And so the computer just punishes you every time for like
Yes.
a stupid rook move for like a
Yes.
6 or whatever.
Every time you can set it, right? You can set it, but I would recommend you set it to like play as hard as it can,
So
because you're trying to learn how to
Yeah.
do a specific task,
Mhm.
I
right?
think that's what the there's a
like the youngest GM or something, that kid.
Craig and Enda.
It's a,
Craig.
it's a Indian player, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Craig is in it.
Yeah, but he's a 14-year-old, Craig's like 18.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, is
It's
it
a new one.
Yeah, it's a new one, yeah, he got GM at like 13 or 12.
Yeah, okay, that's
So you're
interesting.
saying he played against the Indians?
He just plays, like, he says his dad sets him up with a position, and he'll look at it without an engine for like 4 hours, and like just play it against the engine, and doesn't touch the evaluation. And like when they interview him at the end of the game, and the casters are like asking him about stuff in the game, he's like, can you please turn off Stockfish?
Mhm.
I don't wanna see that, I have to look at this later tonight.
Mhm.
And he'll just sit there in the same position.
Yeah, he's
look at-
training. He's
Yeah.
training. I mean, of course.
And I think
I mean,
I
mean,
stopped looking at Stockfish after I realized that, like, I just don't, you give yourself the answer and you satisfy
I
yourself.
think it's okay to look at Stockfish. I just think you need to look at it without
Yeah, but it's
Stockfish
first.
words,
Yeah.
right?
And there are two things to that, right? So I'm really interested in the psychology and like how the brain works and all of that. So I have a lot to say, but like
Yeah.
two things. One, you did play what you believed about it. So that's the first thing. Like you know how
Yeah.
you evaluated it based
Yeah.
on what you played.
And you have
But
to challenge
then,
those.
but then you have the benefit of your like post knowledge. So you go back to see what you think now that you've made whatever errors you were going to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you ask,
I mean,
what the engine
if you
is.
think of it as a tool,
Yeah.
right? Well, why wouldn't you use every tool at your
Just
disposal
use it
to,
intelligently.
Yeah.
to get better? Right? I'm a tool.
And this is my first time meeting you. I saw him advertising that someone was doing a lesson, and I want to
Yeah,
come
I
see.
also-
So,
this was
my
my-
name's Keith Crawford,
Hi,
by the
Keith.
way.
Dave
and,
Russ.
and
Nice to
Dave
meet you.
Russ, what are your credentials? I'm sure.
I'm an
amazing.
What? Oh, I'm an IM. I
Okay.
played some chess.
Good deal, good deal. I think so far, that's probably the highest rated person to do lessons here.
I think so, yeah.
I mean,
I don't
that's
think
pretty
there's been a
rated, right?
GM.
Yeah, or even an IM, because previously I don't think it's only
Well,
been
there aren't
Alex
so
or Graham.
many, right?
There's
Maybe
a-
in-
Huh?
on
Who's
East
the
Coast.
Anna?
Graham's an, is it
Graham and
Alex?
Alex are in the national
I
basketball.
thought Alex was an IM?
No,
I think
no.
he has a norm though. He has Alex.
Graham
I
just got
think
a norm, too.
Alex got his. Graham has an IM.
No, I
Good
think
for
he missed,
Graham.
Did he not?
he missed it by just a few
Ah.
points. Yeah.
He's
Alex,
2400
Alex
right
has
now.
one though.
Or is Graham 24 undefeated? I just talked to him yesterday.
He
There is
did finally pass Alex in rating.
I'm pretty sure there is an IM in Nashville though, but I don't know if he lives. He doesn't play chess that much though. I think he's a dentist.
Oh,
I can't remember his last name, but
he's pretty good. Yeah,
How's
I-
that?
there's a GM in Nashville.
Have there been like a grandmaster who just like does some other job and does a grandmaster as like a?
Yeah, there's a few. There is a few.
There's one at Stanford who's like the highest rated not chess player.
A lot of
Alex is
grandmasters-
fine. We didn't even have a view on the debate. So.
A lot of grandmasters from my generation went into banking. Yeah.
Well,
There
they-
was an active
Merrill Lynch.
recruitment effort by the banks to like hire grandmasters, and a lot of them's.
I know people from college that if you just have quantitative math skills at all, Merrill Lynch will come and find you.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, what is chess? It's essentially pattern recognition.
Yeah, it's the same
right?
sort of brain.
And so, you know, I mean, if you're doing business or financial stuff, pattern
It's the-
recognition is pretty important.
Elista, I think, the place where Kramnik and Topalov played in the World Championship.
Alyssa.
Yeah, their government hires like almost only like chess masters
I'm
at
not
least.
surprised. I think they.
It's a very funny city.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a student in Canada, back in Canada. I haven't talked to him in a really long time, but when he was 19, I think he was planning to go into basically the armed forces and for some code stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a psychology background?
No, I'm just an enthusiast, a hobbyist, but a guy named Daniel Kahneman, who like won a Nobel Prize actually in economics, because you can't win it in psychology. His big, area of expertise is expert intuition. And so the
Yeah.
point is that chess is one of the things that you can gain intuition in, because he says you need two things: immediate feedback and feedback that is unambiguous. And especially as engines get stronger,
Mhm.
you get to get this immediate and unambiguous feedback.
Yeah.
So I'm just really interested in just the psychology of improvement, right? And so actually, this is kind of weird because like when Mike and I played our last game Saturday, I'm at a place where like I care about what other players think, but because of this thing that we're talking about, it's kind of like, but we can just be pontificating in ways that there is a definitive answer, and so
Yeah.
it can be like a type of verbal masturbation.
Yeah.
Where you think something is like
It's hard to figure out when that's happening too.
Right, which is why it just has made me more reticent. So it's like, think about how grandmasters in the past would talk about dubious openings. But now we realize that like, there are many openings that are just openings, right?
Yeah.
Right,
And
But you know, to the really great players,
Mhm.
this was known 50 years
Yeah, a
ago.
long time
Yeah.
ago.
Right?
Certainly.
Like, I think I told everybody my favorite chess quote. It's a Boris Spassky quote, and it was from, like, I think the early 70s. He said, and it was like, in today's circus of modern opening theory, all acts are welcome under the big top.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
there is nothing, like, crazy
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so wild because if you take an engine, for example, using the engine to make good analysis, if you take E4, there is only one move that is objectively losing in response to that out of every legal move. And then if you play that move, it's not winning material.
Yeah. Is it
There is no
F6?
force made.
What?
I think it's like it's like not G6 but G5
Oh, it
or
could be
something like
F5.
that.
No, it's probably F5.
I don't even
F5's
recall.
gotta lose.
Lot,
There's
But-
no chance F5.
you don't think there's a theoretical way that they'll like? No, there's a way to.
But the point that I'm making is, even though it is the analysis says it is a forced win, it is nothing that is obvious and that is
Yeah.
happening in the next 10 moves, which
Right,
is to
right,
say
right.
that even a GM is likely to just let
Yeah.
that slip into equality, right?
My
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
example of that is what's his name? Michael Basman.
Oh, yeah, the Batsmanian.
He
I used to love
plays
that guy's game.
just like terrible open, like just
Mhm.
awful. Sits around for. He'll like play Grob and put all his pieces on the back rank and never take the center
Mhm.
and just sit there and move his king back and forth
Mhm.
and like objectively just terrible position. But it
For some people.
oh, I guess it depends how you he likes it. He thinks it's objectively
Yeah.
pretty good.
But
Practically, it's
but you have
great.
you have to understand though, if he does that against anybody who's like 23 or 2400, they're gonna just blow him off the board.
Mhm.
Not true.
I'm not talking about speed chess.
No, in
He
slow
made
chess,
that.
there's a really famous game where against Ulf Anderson, who's like
Yeah,
An Olympian.
world class.
Yeah,
player.
yeah, it's like really
Well,
famous
sure,
game.
but I
with
mean,
hundreds
of course you
players.
could say that, right? But Anatoly Karpov, arguably one of the best three chess players that ever lived,
Mhm.
lost to E4 A6, right?
Well-
To Tony Miles, and went E4 A6 D4 B5,
Mhm.
and they called it the Birmingham defense
Yeah.
because Miles was
Yeah.
from Birmingham. Okay, why did Karpov lose? Well, he lost because of ego.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
There's certain
Yeah.
people who, when you do stuff, they somehow think something happens in their brain and they go, this guy is insulting me.
Yeah.
And then they get so upset they can't think straight.
And you
It's
try
not
to,
because of
and you
opening.
try to punish something. So like take
Right,
an
right,
opening
you've got
like the
an
Miami, right? So somebody plays G6, Bishop G7, and moves 4 pawns in the opening, and you're thinking that you can punish them, but you can't. Like it is
Yeah.
not like
No, you have to have like you can play like a
But that's
150 attack.
all psychology stuff,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So, I mean, before
Which is-
I go, I'll just give you a quick one. I had a coach who was a FIDE master, he was 2300 something. We played 4 times when I got a little better. And the record, it was 3 wins for me and 1 win for him. The 3 games I won, I offered him a draw in every game.
Mm.
And in every game, he said no. Clearly, I pissed him off by offering a draw, and he played like a doofus, and I beat him.
Oh, my God.
The game I lost, he offered me a draw, and I said no. And
Yeah.
same.
I have
So-
one win against, a rated win against somebody who has inspired me to actually join the club, which was Alex. And I wasn't offering them a draw. Take my win. I may not get one for a while.
I had tournaments where I forbid myself to offer draws.
I don't.
Yeah, I can see what.
And then other tournaments.
I think on principle, it's just bad for you or me to offer a draw, because we just
It's
should.
not
play it
always,
and get it.
oh, it would depend on the circumstance.
I mean, if it's like,
My
If
rule
it's gonna win you a
is.
tournament,
yeah, I mean, to like win, yeah, I guess.
My rule is you only offer a draw if there's nothing you could learn from it. Like if you
Yeah.
can switch positions and you know what to do, then it's fine. Like
Yeah.
both of you understand what's happening. Or you think you don't have counterplay or something like that. But if you wouldn't know how to win it, you might as well just play it and be able
Yeah.
to take it home and analyze it.
yeah, I think probably old man me would agree with you. A young man me
Mhm.
didn't. If I thought about something and I knew I had no clue what I was doing, I would just offer a draw. 'Cause I'd much rather study it. But
Right.
that's a
Then play it.
personality
Mhm.
thing. Probably held me back some, I imagine. All right, good luck
Oh, you-
everybody.
No, this who is
Pleasure
Steve?
meeting you, Keith.
Do you know Steve? Do you guys know Steve? You said somebody knew something else, Steve?
Yeah, of course.
What's it?
Actually,
Oh, you still want
You white or black?
I was white and.
I didn't even know that. I probably wouldn't even talk about it on my live stream. You know, like,
Well, I'll just do my speed chess hand, okay? So there's two questions. I would want to think about this.
Yeah, we're still on live stream.
And I would
Wave to the
also
people.
wanna think
no.
As you
about-
walk past real fast.
Let's not forget a thing. You can't.
I don't know why they didn't change it from casual blitz though.
So you probably want-
Mike, if you can hear me, you gotta take us off live stream. You can't hear me.
Yeah, so you have to be able
Yeah.
to win your pawn.
On the getting,
How is that where you're winning your pawn?
getting aggressive and thinking that you can win, that sort of thing, I've realized looking at my games, the games that I win, a good handful of them, I'm much worse. At some point in the game, I'm a lot worse. And I sit there and I defend for a while, and they refuse to let go of it.
So how is that not just a
Whereas when I have like, you know, I've played really great moves and I have like a super solid advantage, or even like up a pawn, I draw that because they're focused on what matters.
Yes, I had noticed a trend in some of my recent games where I am up a pawn or something, and then I believe that I can force the check.